things that happened over the past week. It's not like we were on air last week, but we just figured we'd limit ourselves to the last week, right?
Because there's so much that goes on in this country that if you take a show for 2 days, you literally have nothing you can talk about because there's so much that's going on.
Absolutely.
Very true. Agree.
I agree too.
Everybody agrees. Then there's no need for the show. Thank you so much
Thanks for
watching.
watching. Great.
Kelly's still
What
digesting
matters?
juice, by the way.
We're only picking what matters. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But not that everything else doesn't matter, but we pick
What matters more?
What matters to who?
Yeah.
That's a rabbit hole we don't want to go through.
All right.
Listen though, there are 159 days left until the big election this August. You all know that. In 2013, there were 24,000 people who vied for positions up for grabs. In 2017, this early on, there's 16,000 more people who are interested in those very same seats. Listen.
In the 2013, there were 14,000 aspirants. I think out of 19,000 who wanted to run, 14,000 actually stood for elections. This year, we expect twice the number because I understand MCS has, the seat has attracted a lot of people. So we expect about 40,000 people, aspirants to participate in the elections. What that means is that we are going to have a lot of nomination disputes. We are going to have a lot of other dynamics involved.
Just about 1900, yes.
Who are these people though?
Everybody.
It is so hilarious, though, that people will not register to vote. They can't reach half the target, and we have doubled the aspirants.
No, that's actually a very important point. The reason why people didn't register to vote, and here I'll be very blatant, is because people have had it with politics. You voted 4 years ago now, you voted 5 years before that, and 5 years before that, 5 years before. Nothing happened, so I'll say I don't need to register. On the other side, though, you're going to get, 400,000 bobbers and MCA?
There you go.
Right.
There's
So, hey,
something in it for everyone who
It can be the
goes for
reason.
it.
I think we should look at it in terms of numbers. Let's break it down. Where is most clogged? Is it the MCA? That it means they've realized that that's where.
The MCA would seem like it's the least powerful, but they actually hold a lot of clout, especially
That's
when it
the
comes
reason
to
why.
threatening governors for impeachment.
So they know where the money is.
Right.
Yeah,
But
that's why.
I would say about 1900. It's actually 1,894 seats. So that's 1,450 MCAs.
It's 20 people per seat.
It's about 20 people per seat, exactly.
Okay.
And there's how many? 349 MPs?
Yes, and we also need to look at it in terms of the party. We break it down. Where are we having most MPs applying or wanting to be members of the county assembly? Is it from what region? Because that will help us then break the numbers.
And ultimately, are we saying that these, contestants or aspirants are being driven for that position just because there is so much up for grabs as being an MCA?
Let me tell you how it happens, because it happened to me once, and it was very hilarious. So you sit there and people sort of know you from one place or there. The people start putting ideas into your head. Young man, I knew you when you're young, and you see you've grown up really well, and if you were to do this, and I guess a lot of people have had that. And as soon as that gets into your head, you start telling yourself, by the way, I can do this, I can become an MP, I can become an MC, I can become a president. And soon enough, you run for office, get broke, come back, try and look for bribes so they can run.
What are the qualifications though?
I think the first election under the current constitution, they could not foresee the importance of these seats. They could not see the weight. Right now, everyone has understood. And you know what they've understood? Where the money is. Foreign trips, holding the governance.
Benchmarking trips. Don't call them foreign trips.
Oh,
Benchmarking
trips.
Yes.
So they know where the money is. If you look at that weight, it's actually on the ground.
Which is so
It's not up
unfortunate
here.
because they're looking at how lucrative it is as opposed to what they can do for the constituents, which is what it's all about.
They've never
But
done
isn't
that.
that always the case?
Yes.
Guys, it is logical. I will be the devil here. It is logical if there's
You'll be
a
the
lot of
devil.
You mean
the devil.
the devil's advocate.
The devil.
Devil himself.
Willis will be the
Which
devil here.
is, if you know that there's money involved in a seat, and this is pure money, whether it's in terms of allowances or pure salary, why wouldn't you go for it? So let's stop talking about service to people and everything. Everyone claims that's why they're running for office. That is not why you're running for office.
It's never been the reason for running for office. It's never been service delivery. It's always been about you and your husband.
Okay, I'll just surrender my
about
ideas.
your
And that's
family.
politics.
About
You're much
politics.
too idealistic.
I
So
tell you.
let's actually contrast that with the Daily Nation's lead story today, and it talks about corrupt politicians who will be locked out of vying in the August election. And this is a big deal, right? The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, EACC, apparently compiling a list of those already facing charges and those under investigation, and they will refuse them clearance on integrity grounds.
Impossible.
Which is interesting. Listen to this sound, which includes the bishop who's now in charge of the EACC.
I think everybody is innocent until proved guilty. You know that. So
Really, you can't say so-and-so is questionable character. And in any case, the best people to judge are the Kenyans. If they know so-and-so is questionable, they should not vote for that person. Yeah, so I think we look at it also from that aspect. This team will work together from both sides, and hopefully in a week's time we shall have a report so that we can move forward.
Let that become the national conversation. But to us as institutions, we shall go by what we have been given under the law and try as much as possible to fulfill that on our part.
Before we come back to this band of misfits, I also want to show you a quote by Michael Mubea, the Chief Executive Operations at ESCC. In an interview with the Daily Nation, he said, so as to stop the misuse and rampant wastage of billions of shillings given to counties, we will go for those who have enriched themselves using taxpayer resources. They will be taken to court, and those hoping to vie barred from getting clearance for nomination.
Listen, my question is on the issue of barring people who are being investigated. At what point are they going to be barred? Because that investigation needs to be complete for them to be, referred to as corrupt individuals.
At the point of issuing the certificates of clearances, but I'll tell you why this is impossible. One, the Constitution guarantees fair trial, and fair trial only comes at the tail end where it's been deliberated and there's an outcome which is acceptable to both.
And
at this point,
all appeal
yes,
mechanisms.
at this point, no one has been charged with anything, or most of them have been charged, but they've not gone through the court process. So on what basis? Actually, if you look at a tweet that was sent out by Evans Kidero today, it's true, it's impossible to bar them on that basis.
Newspapers, and whichever newspaper is going to be in June or whenever it is. All governors, all MCAs, all presidential candidates, everyone is clear to run, everyone just come. Yes, that's a headline.
Really?
Yes.
Do you think that's going to happen?
It's going to be a very long headline though, but it's just going to say everyone just come run.
How do you
this
bar
is
them?
Kenyan. No. Excuse me, no one ever gets barred from running for office, regardless of the thing. And if you do try and get barred, I'll come with my village mates, 200 of them in a bus and in a lorry, and that's it, I'm going to run.
See, that's the problem. They'll use our man syndrome to kind of get them in.
Exactly.
And abuse that whole process.
Even if you are adjudicated as corrupt and you're found guilty, you know what you'll do? Go for an appeal.
And I've just got to say that, there are a lot of corrupt people out there, so that would mean a lot of people wouldn't be running.
They will all run.
Yes.
You know who's running though? You know who's running is two people who are coming on the show after the break. Philip Murgor, the former Director of Public Prosecutions, and Dr. Ekuru Aukot, who's also very familiar with the lawmaking process. But let me just ask you this though. Do you feel like everything you buy these days is a lot more expensive than it was last year?
It certainly
It
is.
would seem so, yes.
Really? Wallace and Ken obviously don't buy things. If you
Or
feel
they just don't feel the pinch. They're not feeling it.
Just because I was silent for 2 seconds.
If you feel that though, it's true, because Kenya's overall rate of inflation jumped to 4.5-year high in February. It now stands at 9.04%. This is the highest inflation in Kenya since June 2012. And the Kenya National Bureau of Standards blames it on the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, on the current drought, which saw an increase in food prices, rather dramatically, I should add. When you look at their data, inflation has been slowly inching up from August last year, when it was 6.25%, save for December when it dropped slightly. Every other month was up until this record high in February. Crucially, this is far above the government's comfort level of 7.5%, so we're well above that. Let's look at the data, though, on just how high the food prices have gone over the last year. If you want to make a comparison, KNBS helpfully added a table with comparisons from February last year and February this year. I'm going to show you the 5 commodities whose prices have risen the most over the past year. The most expensive compared to a year ago today, kerosene. The price is up nearly 68%, incidentally to 68 shillings a litre on average. A kilo of cabbages now 56% more expensive at 75 shillings. The third highest gainer year on year is 1 kilogram of sukuma wiki, which is now selling for about 54 shillings nationwide compared to 36 shillings a year ago. And a litre of diesel now goes for 90 shillings. A year ago, it was only 68 shillings. You'll have to spend 113 shillings for a kilo of mangoes today when you could have saved 30% if you bought it in Feb last year. And one outlier though, which I must mention, is a 13 kilogram mtungi, as we call it, of gas. It is 15% cheaper compared to a year ago, but otherwise everything else is up. Wallace.
I will give you 2 things about this inflation thing. One, it's the positive and the negative. The negative is, well, let's start with the positive. The positive is that it's going to rain in the next 2 or 3 weeks all over the country. That's what the Met Department says. But those rains may not be to the level that we want them to be, but that obviously brings food prices down. The negative is this: if you correlate that story of inflation to the fact that people are losing jobs, there's so many people who have been laid off. Can you imagine if you went out of work, say in November, you're laid off by your company, and then food prices go up? You're basically a double whammy.
Yeah.
So it's really nasty, and But we hope for the rains. It's the
Do
only
we
hope we
hope for the rains though? Like that's where we're at. We're hoping for the
Hope
rains.
and prayer. You simply hope and pray for the rains. That's the only thing that's going to
You're
bring
not a hope
inflation
and
down.
prayer kind of dude.
And if it rains for, say, a couple of weeks, is that really going
And
to
that's what,
have
the
an
Met,
impact?
that's what the
Yeah.
Met Department said, that it's gonna rain. Yes, it might either flood or not rain in enough quantities, so you end up in a problem. And we've had a failed rain season. I think it's October to December. So crops had already started failing, which is partly why it's gone up to 9%. So literally, it's a hope and prayer thing.
Why don't we look at it wholesome? What raises the food prices, for example? Is it only the weather patterns? I don't think it is. I think even the political
food
climate.
prices.
There's no money in this country. Everyone is complaining, at least from the village.
And
There's
this
no
tends to
money.
happen during an
This is the
election
most
year, right?
pedestrian thought, Ken. This like there's no money because
There's no money.
like those people who say
Practically.
unajua hata Moi alikuwa mbaya lakini kulikuwa na pesa. Watu walikuwa na pesa. Have you had that
Practically, I'll explain. Contractors are complaining they're not being paid by county governments. Have you had that?
I know a friend, but they're in Machakos who's not
He's
been
never
paid for
been paid
almost 2 years.
I know of a guy who's not been paid
Yes.
for 2 years.
Someone
Now
said
that
that-
justifies my statement.
Someone said,
There's no
and
money.
it's a very big risk for this show before you go to the break. It's a very big risk. Do not work with county governments. You are going to get
Yeah,
your heart.
you should.
You're going to
You
get your
can.
heart and
You
business
can.
broken.
County governments are not paying, and then when you do,
Why?
you
Because
have
they
to
don't have the
dig
money,
grease
or
with
they
hand.
are
They
misappropriating.
prioritize their expenditures over development. They don't have money totally. The Treasury, how many times do they go before the Parliamentary Accounts Committee and complain, we don't have money. Money is not being issued. So I justify my statement. It's not pedestrian.
So you're telling people, well, it's not to do business with county governments. If you want your money quickly, if you want to make sure business is
That
not going
is what I
under,
take away from Sidebar. Be careful when doing your money
Yeah.
with the county government and hope and pray that it rains.
hope and pray that it rains. We're going to take a quick break right now on Sidebar. When we come back, we're joined by presidential candidates Ekuro Aukot and Philip Murgor, and I think Smriti and Wallace will be dropping out.
Just because Philip Murgor is in Lenana school, you cannot have too much Lenana in a show, otherwise it's going to blow
Oh,
up.
God help us all.
Dropping out,
Listen, we're going to take a
stepping away.
break. We're going to be right back. You stand no chance. Why are you even doing this?
Why do they say I stand no chance? Because probably they say that because you guys haven't really given us the proper coverage as we should. I think if Kenyans listen to the issues we are putting on the table, especially as Third Way Alliance, we put in about 5 pillars which actually touch the hearts and minds of Kenyans. So if Kenyans listen to issues and they stopped listening to tribal mobilizations and maybe people whose only CV in life is a name that they've acquired over the years,
but a name is important in politics.
It is important.
It helps getting that name recognition.
It is important only if there is content to it. I mean, a name alone is not enough. You must have content. You must be able to speak substance. A lot of the people that we will be competing against, for me, I have hardly heard them speak of any content or any substance that really affects Kenyans. Let me give you an example. Last month should be a defining moment for Kenyans. Every politician who is in power right now, who we want to replace, was busy running around this country, mobilizing Kenyans to go and vote. They were mobilizing Kenyans to go and vote, whilst at the same time, Kenyans were dying in hospitals because doctors were on strike, famine and drought was killing Kenyans. I just came back from Kilifi and Mombasa counties last week, and I was told very horrific stories in Ganze. So, you know, you don't mobilize a dying population. And for me, what I also feel a little bit unfair in this narrative, we need to create a new narrative in terms of the leadership of this country. And the media, I really will propose, should be able to help create that narrative, because you people followed these people as they mobilized their tribal regions and their tribes, as if that is really news.
Which Third Way Alliance has marketed itself as a tribeless movement. How can you shift mindsets when it comes to politics and trying to separate tribe from that?
That's why Third Way Alliance is interested in putting issues on the table. I've even been asked ridiculous questions like, Ekuru, you are from the Turkana community. How many people can you mobilize? I don't want to be a president of the Turkana or of 2 tribes. I want to be a president of Kenya, which is why I'm putting 5 key issues on the table.
Okay. Do you want to be a politician or you want to be a leader?
I want to be a leader. And by the way,
how do you draw the line?
I see nothing wrong with politics.
Okay.
Politics is public life. Politics is about security of the people, food security, education, health, and all those things. So anybody who talks about those things, I mean, politics is stewardship. This country, for the last 53 or 54 years, has hardly had any stewards. Leadership that can actually take advantage of either economic opportunities that are obtained in any regions of this country. We've never had that. We've had our leadership around, or politicians masquerade as leaders around tribe, around numbers. Now, that's not how our country...
And that's not going to change, Daktari. I think it's safe to assume it's never going to change.
No, I think, Ken, you have to be optimistic.
Okay.
You have to be optimistic. It's not right. Just because people get killed in this country does not justify the fact that we should continue killing people. We must always say, no, this is a vice. We must change it.
All right, Mr. Murgor.
Yes.
Why are you even doing this, knowing the stakes that are involved in this, and everybody calls this a 2-horse race?
It's just you that calls it a 2-horse race.
And the polls, you don't rank anywhere in the early polls.
Who does the polls?
The pollsters.
Yeah, the pollsters. And what are they based on? Exactly what Okuro said, on what you do in the media. But let's start where it should.
But they don't poll journalists. They poll ordinary Kenyans.
And how does the population know that you exist or don't exist? Through the media. But coming back to something you asked, my brother Okuro, starting by saying he has no chance. Chance at what? The race hasn't started. The official campaign period is on the 28th of June. So the fact that
and yet you have posters around the country telling people to register as voters so they can vote for you.
No, my posters have now come down, and they were all related to the MVR, mass voter registration. It wasn't MVR2. None of them said vote for Philip Murgor.
But there was a big picture of you. I just saw one in Kisumu over the weekend.
I'm glad it's still there, and I'm glad more importantly it hasn't been torn down. So it just shows my acceptability. There's one in Kiambu as well, and it hasn't been torn down. But having said that, we haven't started our campaigns. Neither Okuro hasn't. As lawyers, we should be the first people to observe the law. We went across as UDM to IEBC, the offices, the other day, and asked Mr. Chebukati why he doesn't rein in the government, particularly Uhuru and Ruto, from starting their campaigns. And the gentleman said he's powerless. He can't enforce it. He has He has set out guidelines, but he can't enforce them. So what we have is like a race. Somebody has taken off before the starter gun. You are quite impressed that they are running many times round before the rest of us, but the race hasn't started.
But how are you going to go up against politicians who have a bigger war chest? Some say maybe more political charm to take it all the way to the top office.
Charm, I dispute totally. War chest, I think you should ask them where they got it. I'd love you to ask them on this show where they've got the billions they're running around with. I am very proud of the fact that I don't have a war chest, particularly one of which I can't explain the sources. So these are the things you should be asking on the front page instead of, giving them headlines as they tear at each other and divide Kenyans on tribal lines. Stick to the message.
Tell me something. Are you a quitter?
Not at all. You must be very young. Why do I say that? If you've known me a long time, if there's one guy who doesn't quit,
how far did you go with Goldenberg investigation?
They removed me from the case. I didn't quit.
I know you were threatened. Your life. You came out in public and complained about your life being in danger.
No, you missed the point. Did they sack me or did I quit?
You quit on those bases.
No. Which part are you talking about? As DPP?
No. Investigations first, before you became the DPP later on in 2005.
Well, I'm glad you asked about that much earlier time. I think it was
1993, 94?
No. 1997.
97.
1997, that's why I said you must have been very young. I know Victoria was. The idea is, if you look a little into that history, my life was actually threatened.
Yes.
And by very, very powerful people in government. And thereafter, when I didn't quit, they cut away my financial base by denying me my legal fees.
Yes, they did.
At which point you ask yourself, why should you work for a client who's not even willing to compensate you?
All right.
So it's not about quitting. It's at the point when you know it's hopeless.
All
but
right.
as long as I have backup and support, I don't quit.
Just one more. Goldenberg, and then you came in as the DPP. So you had Goldenberg, you had the Anglo leasing, and you had obviously the cocaine haul. Which one can you say was your biggest success? At the
Now,
time
if any of them.
If any, yeah.
In all the three you have mentioned, as DPP, I was fired. So I didn't remain long enough to succeed in anything. So, but the fact that I pushed them to the extent that I could is my success.
Dr. Koto, you're going to ask Vicky something.
Yeah, I was going to ask Victoria, and I really want to challenge you. Why do you guys perpetuate this narrative that the leadership in Kenya is only about certain individuals?
Or certain families.
Or certain families. I think for me that's where we begin to go wrong in this country. If we are honest to ourselves, one of the frailties of Kenya's, Kenya as a country is the failure of leadership. Because if you are asking me or my brother Murgor to have the same experience of the fellows you call,
successful,
I don't need that experience. Because look, right from what he's explaining, let's pick, for example, the corruption scorecard alone. Goldenberg, Anglo leasing, Eurobond, Suji Makaburi saga, the sale of cocaine haul, all those things. None of the fellows we are seeking to replace can highball Kenyans and say, I am clean.
Okay.
So is that really the experience we are looking for?
So let's not talk about those.
What I wish you guys could do could help. Let's talk about a new narrative, the issues Murgor is putting on the table, the issues Ekuru is putting on the table.
Okay.
And that is what will drive this country forward.
Yeah.
May I also make a suggestion?
You want to make a suggestion? Okay, real quick, because
in this way, tell us why you think the 2 or 3 giants you clearly seem to be siding with are doing such a good job.
Anybody. We're giving people equal opportunity.
When you start a discussion by saying, Okoro, you have no chance, or Mr. Murgor, what have you done for anyone lately?
Because that's how
what you should be asking is, have the others done anything? And you lay the foundation for a discussion why we should think we're any better.
When we have them on, we will ask those questions. But I have to.
In fact,
yes,
Larry,
yes.
If I can just add to that. If you look at these people who have really sort of quote-unquote dominated the political space in this country, they've actually been the sources of the many problems Kenyans are going through right now.
So you're saying the problems in Kenya are to blame on Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta?
No, I didn't mention their names. But
you said it.
No, you said it. Those are your words.
Of course you're a lawyer, so you need to...
And don't be embarrassed if you say it. No one is going to bash you.
Probably because, like Ken said, that's how you've been conditioned. But I want to tell you this. This idea of two-horse race is actually absolute nonsense.
Created by the media.
Yes.
Created by the media, fair enough. I have to take a break, but let me ask you, both of you, like you first, what is the alternative you're offering to Kenyans?
A tribeless, eliminate tribalism, eliminate corruption, with the support of every other person of like mind, because if you look at those two problems, those are the two problems that threaten the existence of this country. If we don't get it right, this election will probably descend into civil war.
Will eliminating tribalism give people jobs, give them food, give them roads, give them all of those things?
And I'm coming to the second part. And if you eliminate corruption, there'll be so much saved, you'll get all those things. But I can tell you, we don't need any more roads. Too many roads. We're not paying our doctors. We're not paying anybody's salaries in the name of infrastructure. There's enough. We have to balance the needs of the country.
Dr.
I am giving you a camel. I'm putting a camel on the race. That's why we call us Ngamia one. And I want to dispute the fact that people keep on saying the two-horse race. We want to give you guys a camel, and I want Kenyans just to take this simple example. Kenya has been resilient despite all the problems that have been caused by the leadership in the last 54 years. Now, Third Way Alliance, Kenya, is actually proposing to Kenyans a leadership that has no baggage, that is not been implicated in any corruption scandals. Kenya needs to start afresh with the new leadership, because the solution number one to our problems in Kenya, trust me, Larry, is to replace the current leadership.
All right. Gentlemen, we're going to leave it there, and we've deliberately made it short so that politicians don't come and bamboozle us. So if you can say it in those few minutes, you think the Kenyans have heard you.
You want us to leave the show?
That's we're going to leave it because
That's
we're taking a break.
way of saying it, I guess.
And when we come back, we're back to conclude.
We haven't even started.
We have covered it. When we come back, we're back to conclude the show with Smriti and Wallace will join us back. Please come back, will you?
Don't make it about you.
Miruru Waweru tweeted and says, why wouldn't TV invite Aukot and Philip Murgor for 5 minutes show? Hopeless.
Because that's how television works. These 20-minute interviews don't do anything.
Nobody has time for an hour's interview, guys.
Yes, and what do you want to know about his family life? No, it's about what he's doing for the country.
Would you like the medical history as well?
Exactly.
Could we move on to our talking points?
Good. So legal and political implications are plenty over the last week after Deputy President William Ruto gave a shoot-to-kill order for the chaos in Baringo. Listen.
Mhalifu yeyote ambaye wako na silaha anaiba ng'ombe ya wengine na kuua watoto na kuua kina mama, pia na wao wanapaswa kuuawa.
Ken, you're a lawyer here. Can the Deputy President issue a shoot-to-kill order?
He can, but he doesn't have the backing of the law.
So is that a yes or a no?
He can just pronounce it, but he will go nowhere. And I'll tell you
Can
I tell you what? Can
I tell you why?
Okay,
yes.
Go ahead.
Because one, the only person who is supposed to do that is the commander-in-chief or the IG. But it has to be, Kenya has to be in a state of war. Without that, you cannot justify it, and you have to go to the...
So,
do you know, by the way, someone can disobey that legally?
Okay, so hang on. It's a complicated situation. You're going to say, Wallace.
I was going to say this. The problem with lawyers is that they can see 10 sides to a two-sided thing. Fact is, if you're saying he cannot issue one legally, it means he cannot issue one. And the danger is, if you issue a shoot-to-kill order, under what circumstances is that shoot-to-kill happening? If I'm walking on the streets of Marigat and a policeman decides he doesn't like how I
don't like the shape of your head,
me and says, no, it was shoot-to-kill, I was told by the Deputy President.
And it happened immediately, by the way.
Hang on.
Chief was killed.
So a chief was killed in Baringo.
So there should be conditions to this shoot-to-kill order that he was not clear on.
You cannot...
No, he cannot.
He cannot give conditions.
All right, but either way, he has done it now. He has issued that shoot-to-kill order. So now what?
The police can disobey that order lawfully.
So you know,
have to execute it.
Boss, that is called a
How can they
constitutional
disobey?
No, they can disobey it legally.
But if he hasn't given it legally, how?
So they're not disobeying.
That's the thing.
They're not disobeying if he hasn't given it
That's the
legally.
thing. When you swear, you say you will abide by the Constitution.
Okay.
And so that you can translate it, go with it backwards, and then it tells you can disobey what is not lawful.
You can disobey what's not lawful. You were going to say, Vicky?
To be clear, because you said the commander-in-chief can give the shoot-to-kill order, but is it to the military or police? Which one?
To the military.
Military.
Okay, you know what? The import of the chaos in Baringo is that the Kenya Red Cross was forced to withdraw its staff from Baringo on Saturday because one of its relief food convoys was actually attacked. And that's a big problem. They returned yesterday, but the insecurity in Baringo remains. This is what we covered a couple of days ago.
Nchi hii ya Baringo imekaa kama yuko Iraq au Beirut. Lawlessness. No law and order. Ambayo criminals take charge. Criminals run the show.
You know, the problem about this is the Kenya Red Cross usually operates under some kind of a cover of, what is it?
Neutrality.
Neutrality.
Right.
So they can go places where anybody else cannot go.
If the Red Cross says it's not going into a zone, that is literally the worst of the worst. I mean, they're going to war zones, for heaven's sake.
Yeah.
They're going to places where terrorists are still active and they get respected. If you see you're not going into a region, there is a problem.
And they've dealt with that area before. 2014, 2016, after the Pedo attacks, and the Secretary General, Baskulet, had said that he thinks this is politically motivated. Also being that it is an election.
But isn't it always politically
motivated?
Well, more so that it is, because he said this scenario, or you know, it's known in different parts of the country. There's cattle rustling, but that's not the issue. The issue is that this is a deeper problem than what we see from the,
It certainly is, and I also think, sorry Ken, is that you talked about the shoot to kill. We need to think about what implications is this going to have, you know, in the bigger picture.
It looks as though law was suspended in that area.
Law was suspended, Ken says. Hold that thought right now, because speaking of politics, a video of Raila Odinga from November 2012 is all of a sudden the biggest deal right now. It's doing the rounds again because Gatundu South MP Moses Kuria dug it up and he posted it on Facebook. It talks about Musalia Mudavidi's role in the biggest scandal in the 90s. Everybody knows it by now. It's a brand name, Golden Bag. Listen.
Mtu ambaye alisimamia kabisa juu ya mambo ya wizi ya Golden Bag sio mwingine ila ni Musalia Mudavadi na Nyayo mwenyewe. Wanajua hiyo. Mwaka hiyo wakati Profesa Saitoti alikuwa ameshatoka kwa Treasury. Mwaka wa 93 waziri wa fedha alikuwa anaitwa Musalia Mudavadi. Hapa walilipa bilioni 5.8, wakabilipa bilioni 13.5.
Before we discuss that, Musalia Mudavadi's alleged involvement in the Golden Bag scandal has gained currency again over the last year. It's kind of coming back. It's a renaissance of this scandal. Munyori Buku is Senior Director of Public Communication at State House. He tweeted this on 2nd November last year. That was really 2nd November 2015. Even Musalia Mudavadi, who capped the Golden Bag thievery with the 5.8 billion shilling payment in 1993, has a view on the economy. It's obviously meant to be sarcastic, but considering who's saying this, you should certainly take it with a pinch of salt. But there's more. Because on 24th January this year, the Nairobi Confidential newspaper, anybody know that? And their website?
No.
It pretends to be an investigative journal, but it is widely believed to be a propaganda outlet by you-know-who. It had this story. Fictitious companies were paid more than 100 billion shillings for exporting gold, but the exports never took place. The story said Mudavadi served as the Minister for Finance between 93 and 97. He was accused of overseeing the payment of a large part of the taxpayers' money. It continued. And then there's even more. I wanted to make sure we've covered all of this for you. On the same day NASA became official, Musalia Mudavadi, whose idea it was, came to NTV and he spoke to NTV's Mark Masai. And because Mark is a great journalist, naturally, the question of Golden Bag came up. This is his response.
You've spoken of having the principles put in place, that is your foundations, and that I believe is in the coalition agreement that was signed today. But there's also part of the unifying structure of NASA, the issue of trust. Now, one of the chiefs has before called you or termed you as the architect of Golden Bag. Are you, and that is Raila Odinga, are you able to bury the hatchet and move forward without any bad blood?
First of all, let me put it this way. I was never the architect of Golden Bag. In fact, I am the one who actually slayed it. If you go back into history, you will come to that conclusion. So I have a very clear conscience that when I was Minister for Finance, I played a very important role in bringing to an end the whole saga of Golden Bag, which I found being perpetuated under the scheme of export compensation scheme and other schemes and check kiting and what have you that were going on in the financial sector at that time.
The question obviously then is, was Musalia Mudavadi the architect of Golden Bag?
Two things. One, that Golden Bag price tag keeps on going up. Every year since I was in Form 4 in 1993 has gone up 7 billion to 15 billion to 50 billion now to 100 billion. The Kenyan economy could not have taken 100 billion shillings in 1993. Second, I'm going to be totally cynical about this. This stuff doesn't matter.
What do you mean doesn't matter?
I was going to ask, this is the time for all the videos and all the details to start surfacing.
Right.
What impact is it really going to have, if any? It's going to stir controversy, but is it going to have a bigger impact?
Kenyans don't really care about that video, and I bet the voters,
He does.
the voters, no, we do, but Kenyans, no one does. No one does.
My face is, I am
does, yes.
My face is
really
full of...
cares.
It's a fact
really
of like,
cares.
Kenyans went through post-election violence. It did not matter during the election. Kenyans have gone through theft after theft after theft. It doesn't matter.
Don't care.
This will have
Golden
no
Bag was-
implication whatsoever. It
Golden
goes to the
Bag
whole
was
thing of there are no
24
permanent enemies in politics.
It is
When
very
you
sad.
see
I'm not saying it's a good thing, by the way.
Raila
right?
and Mudavadi on the same
So
side.
what do you think?
I don't know what
It's
I
just
think,
a joke.
but the reason why this is coming up now, obviously coming from Moses Kuria and therefore Jubilee, is that they're trying to say Raila and Mudavadi are now together, but there's a time when they were not together.
Right.
Because that video is from, I think, 2002.
Everyone there has never been with someone else. Everyone,
for them to be together. So
Wow, when you say been with,
Can I give you the best thing about this? Everyone has been in bed with everyone.
With everyone, yeah.
So everyone should just be quiet.
So we shouldn't be
Sips
surprised.
water.
Sips juice and water and everything. I have nothing in front of me. This stuff will not matter.
We all agree nobody
nobody cares
Listen,
about it.
Please tell us on the hashtag side, but do you care about who was where and with whom and what did they do?
Very sad, but Kenyans...
Don't pay attention at all.
Well then, okay, finally, something African. For the second year in a row, there is no former African president worthy of a 500 million shilling prize run by a Sudanese British tycoon. The Mo Ibrahim Foundation announced Tuesday that there was no winner of the 2016 Ibrahim Prize for Achievement in African Leadership. This is a statement from the chair of the Independent Prizes Committee, and listen to it because it's important. As I emphasize each year, a very high bar was deliberately set when the prize was launched in 2006. We recognize and applaud the important contributions that many African leaders have made to change their countries for the better. But the prize is intended to highlight and celebrate truly exceptional leadership, which is uncommon by its definition, shade. After careful consideration, the committee has decided not to award the prize in 2016. That's just shade. You know who was eligible, by the way? Tanzania's Jakaya Kikwete, Ghana's John Mahama, Mozambique's Arnaldo Guebuza, and Nigeria's Goodluck Jonathan.
Well,
They're all eligible.
Mahama left office this year. So that was a 2016 prize.
2016, yeah.
But the point is this. Again, this stuff doesn't matter because prizes like this, if you don't award the Nobel 3 years in a row and then come back and award one and then come back again and not award, this thing will become irrelevant. So either they decide they're going to award it, lower your pass mark, or just forget about it. This thing of...
I don't think the presidents really care.
It's not about the money. It's just the thing. It becomes irrelevant if it's never awarded.
Okay.
So such recognition doesn't.
Well, no. I think the fact that it's not awarded means that the foundation is trying to say something.
Nobody met
the guys who have won this thing are always from small countries. You have not seen a Nigerian win it, a Kenyan win it. The big countries.
In fact,
those are big countries that usually are caught up in corruption.
They don't.
So let me explain. The candidates for the Ibrahim Prize are all former African executive heads of state or government who have left their office during the last 3 calendar years, so 2014 to 2016. They must have been democratically elected and they must have served their constitutionally mandated term. So Nelson Mandela was honored in 2007. He was the original one.
Obviously.
And then that same year, it was awarded to President Joaquim Chissano of Mozambique. 2008, they gave it to Festus Mogae of Botswana.
Then
there were no winners in 2009 and 2010. Then President Pedro Pires of Cabo Verde won in 2011. Another 2 years without honorees. Then the last laureate was Hifikepunye Pohamba of Namibia.
There is your answer. There is your answer.
Guys, that's where we have to leave it. Any final thoughts? 10 seconds, because they have to...
I am the cynic, and I'm sorry for being the cynic, but I think I'll continue being the cynic on this show.
We need a cynic. Guys, thank you so much. This has been Sidebar. We're back next Wednesday at 8 p.m. I'm Larry Medowo.
I'm Victoria Rubadiri.
I'm Wallace Kantai.
Ken Mijungu.
Smriti Vidyarthi.
It happens all over again. Wednesday, 8 p.m.